The takeoff ritual the car flight attendant must follow, even if passengers never notice. Before a plane races down the runway, before the wheels lift away from the ground, and before the cabin settles into that familiar floating silence, something small happens that most passengers never even notice. Phones are put away. Tray tables click into place. Seatbelts tighten across laps. The engines begin to build into a deep, heavy roar. And then, at the front and back of the cabin, the flight attendants sit down and become unusually still. Some tuck their hands beneath their thighs. Some press their palms flat against their legs. Their faces look calm, almost casual. But behind that calm expression, they are preparing for the possibility that the next few seconds could change everything. This ritual began with one of the earliest lessons in aviation. Takeoff and landing are not just ordinary parts of a flight. They are the most intense, most demanding moments in the entire journey. In the early years of commercial air travel, aircraft cabins were much smaller than they are today. Seats were simpler. Safety rules were still developing. Even the job of a flight attendant looked very different from what it is now. In the 1930s, many early flight attendants were hired partly because they had nursing experience. Their job was to help nervous passengers, serve meals, keep the cabin orderly, and offer comfort inside a machine that still felt strange and frightening to many people. Flying was not yet routine. For a passenger stepping onto an airplane, it could feel like entering the future. But as planes became larger, faster, and more powerful, the role of the flight attendant changed. They were no longer just caretakers in the sky. They became trained safety professionals inside a moving aircraft. The cabin was no longer treated as a comfortable room above the clouds. It became an emergency environment that had to be understood, managed, and controlled within seconds. Doors had to be opened the correct way. Evacuation slides had to deploy at the right moment. Passengers had to be directed towards safe exits. Emergency equipment had to be located quickly, even in smoke, darkness, panic, or confusion. The seated posture during takeoff was never created to look polished or formal. It was created for one harsh, practical reason: to keep the crew protected, alert, and ready to move the instant the aircraft stopped moving. That is why the flight attendant jump seat became more than a folding seat hidden near the door. It became a small command post inside the cabin, placed close to exits, galleys, emergency equipment, and the passengers who might need instructions the moment something went wrong. As commercial aviation grew after World War II, the airplane cabin changed quickly. Planes carried more people. Flights became longer. Routes stretched across oceans. Airports became busier, louder, and more crowded. What had once felt like a rare luxury slowly became a global system, moving millions of people through the sky. With that growth came a new problem. A single flight attendant could no longer rely on instinct, memory, or quick improvisation alone. In an emergency, every second mattered. Every movement mattered. Even hesitation could become dangerous. This is where the quiet takeoff ritual began to take shape. During takeoff and landing, flight attendants were trained to sit in a brace position. Their feet stayed flat on the floor. Their backs remained upright and firm. Their heads were positioned depending on whether their jump seat faced forward or backward. Their arms stayed close to the body because loose arms could be thrown around violently during a sudden stop, hard landing, or impact. On some airlines, sitting on the hands became one version of this posture. The palms were placed beneath the thighs. The thumbs were tucked in. The arms were controlled. The body became still and tight, almost locked into place. From the outside, it could look strange. A passenger might glance over and wonder why a trained crew member was sitting there in such an unusual way, so calm while the engines thundered louder and louder. But the reason was simple: reduce movement, prevent the arms from flailing, and keep the body stable during the most vulnerable moments of flight. At the same time, another invisible habit developed inside this ritual. It was called the silent review. While passengers saw only a still face and a quiet uniform, the flight attendant was mentally rehearsing what to do. Which exit is closest? Which exit is the backup? How does this door open? Where is the emergency equipment? What commands must be shouted? Which passengers nearby might be strong enough or calm enough to help if an evacuation begins? To the cabin, it looked like silence. Inside the crew member's mind, the emergency had already been rehearsed. The ritual became even more important when aviation safety shifted from reaction to preparation. By the late 20th century, cabin safety was no longer treated as a simple part of customer service. It became a serious discipline built around training, timing, and human behavior under pressure. The biggest transformation was not a new kind of aircraft or a new piece of equipment. It was a new understanding of time. In an emergency, the cabin crew might have only seconds to recognize the danger, decide which exits are safe, open the doors, block exits that cannot be used, and command dozens or even hundreds of frightened passengers to move. Panic wastes time. Confusion wastes time. Trying to remember a procedure only after danger appears wastes time. So airlines trained flight attendants to prepare before anything happened. The silent review became a mental rehearsal performed during the calmest-looking part of the flight. While the aircraft lined up on the runway, while passengers looked out the window or adjusted their seatbelts, flight attendants quietly ran through questions in their minds. How do I open this door? Where is my nearest alternate exit? What commands will I shout first? Are we over land or water? Where is the fire extinguisher? Where is the flashlight? Who near me might be able to assist? These questions were not random. They were a way of bringing the emergency closer before it arrived, so the body and mind would not freeze if it actually happened. The posture and the mental review worked together. The body stayed braced and protected. The mind stayed alert and active. That is why the ritual can look almost too calm from the outside. It is not relaxation, it is controlled readiness. And that is exactly why most passengers miss it. The flight attendant is not performing for the cabin. There is no announcement, no dramatic movement, no visible signal that something important is happening. The most important work is happening internally, in silence, at the same moment when passengers are staring out at the runway lights, gripping the armrest, or waiting for the first lift of the wheels. Today, the takeoff ritual can look slightly different depending on the airline, the country, the type of aircraft, and the design of the jump seat. Some crew members still sit with their hands under their thighs. Others place their hands flat on their thighs. Some hold the edges or sides of the jump seat. Some procedures change depending on whether the attendant is facing the passengers or facing the same direction as the plane. The reason comes down to design. A rear-facing jump seat supports the body differently from a forward-facing one. In a rear-facing seat, the backrest and headrest can absorb force in a different way. In a forward-facing seat, the body may need a different brace position to protect the head, neck, arms, and legs. The exact posture is not random. It is shaped by the physics of sudden motion, impact, and human injury. That is why passengers should not simply copy what they see the crew doing. A passenger seat and a flight attendant jump seat are not the same tool. A passenger is usually expected to follow the safety card, keep the seatbelt fastened low and tight, and use the brace position designed for that specific seat. The crew posture is different because the crew has a different job. They must survive the impact, stay conscious if possible, and be ready to take command immediately afterward. The modern ritual also reflects something aviation has learned over decades. Safety must be repeatable. A flight attendant cannot start from zero during an emergency. They cannot wait for panic to settle before remembering what to do. The body posture, the locked-in focus, the silent review, and the readiness to shout commands all turn fear into procedure. What looks like a small personal habit is actually part of a much larger cabin safety system. The stillness is designed, the silence is trained. The strange hand position is not superstition, nervousness, or tradition for tradition's sake. It is preparation hidden in plain sight. The strangest part is that sitting on the hands is not universal. Some airlines and safety procedures prefer hands on the thighs or holding the sides of the seat instead. That is because the real goal is not the hand position itself. The goal is controlled arms, a protected body, and instant readiness. Another hidden detail is the 60-second review. In less than a minute, a flight attendant may mentally rehearse the door, the exits, emergency commands, passenger helpers, and survival clues outside the aircraft. The cabin looks calm. The brain is already working in emergency mode. So the takeoff ritual every flight attendant must follow is not just one movement. It is a combination of posture, silence, memory, and readiness. The hands may be under the thighs, resting on the lap, or holding the seat, but the purpose stays the same. Protect the crew during the most critical moments of flight, then make sure they can protect everyone else. Passengers see a calm uniform sitting quietly in a jump seat. Aviation sees a trained safety operator, braced for seconds that may never come.